Welcome to the Vital Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Angel Monroe, and we're talking all things health and wellness, looking at ways to live a vital life. Short disclaimer, this is not intended as medical advice. This is just for general purposes only. So today we're talking cold and flu. I often get asked what I do when I have a cold or flu, and I often say nothing or rest, and that's not really entirely true. I do a little bit more than that. So I'm going to flesh that out today. I'm going to talk a little bit about germ versus terrain theory. If you know this info already, I apologize. I'm just going to talk about it briefly for the people that don't really understand it yet. And I'm going to provide some reading material as well if you want to dig deeper into it. I'm going to talk about the ramifications of stopping a cold or flu. And then I'm going to talk about what I do personally. So germ theory versus terrain theory, this argument's been going on for over 100 years. Louis Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp feuded about this famously over 100 years ago. Louis Pasteur was the guy responsible for pasteurization. He said that it was adamant that germs cause disease, and Antoine Béchamp said that it was the terrain that was everything, and that microbial life was only a problem if you weren't looking after your internal environment. Louis Pasteur was actually caught plagiarizing work, and he also famously apparently on his deathbed said that Antoine Béchamp was right and that the germ was nothing and the terrain was everything. So when we're talking about germs, we're talking about bacteria and viruses. And bacteria, you can find a bacteria, you can look under a microscope and see bacteria easily, and you can see all the different types. You can weigh them and categorize them and do all of those things. I guess the argument with bacteria is people say that there's good bacteria and bad bacteria, or pathogenic bacteria. And like we'll get to in a minute, there's no proof that they can be passed from one person to another. But they can be a problem if they've got a lot of dead and dying tissue to clean up. That's the job of bacteria, is to clean things up, to bioremediate their environment that they're in. And germs are everywhere. We have more bacteria on and in us than we do human cells. They are everywhere in nature, and they would do quite fine without us, but we would not survive without bacteria. We are basically made up of water, bacteria, and proteins. So, yeah, we need them. So the war against bacteria, in my opinion, is a war against ourselves, and it is one that should stop being played, really, because it can end badly for us, for sure. Viruses are another story. Most people don't know this, but you can't look under a microscope with the fluid of a sick person and see a virus. I think that sometimes can be shocking or unbelievable to people because, we see kind of cartoon images of them in the paper and such, but you can't. The way that a virologist will see, you can Google that really easily. That's not a secret. What virologists say is that you can't see a virus. They're too small. So they have to do something called a cell culture. And they call this isolation. And so usually in general language, we think of isolation as to separate something from everything else. But in virology, the opposite is true. They don't isolate, they add a million things, and then they say they found a virus. So generally what they do is they get the fluid of a sick person, they get the cell of animal, so it's inbred animals, usually sick monkey kidney cells they get. So they add that to the fluids of a sick person. They add antibiotics, ones that are actually known to cause cell death, especially to kidney cells. And then they add calf serum and a whole lot of other stuff. they wait a few days, you get cell death, and then they put it under an electron microscope. You can't see it even then with a general microscope. It has to be an electron microscope, which they add more stuff to, heavy metals and dyes and things. They see the dying cell, they see things coming out of the dying cell, and they say that's the virus. And whether they do, sometimes they might do, and sometimes they don't, but they don't usually declare a control study in these papers. And in science, you have to have a control study. Otherwise, you could do anything and then say, the result that I got proves this theory. You have to have a control. And so a control would be doing the same thing to a cell, but without the fluids of a sick person. And people have actually done this, and they find the same thing, the same cell death. So big questions on the actual existence of viruses. And this is done over and over and over again, by the way. Think of any virus that you can think of, that's the way that they say that they found them. A really good book is called The Final Pandemic. This is by Doctors Mark and Sam Bailey. It's just a really easy to read. I think anyone can pick this one up. Another good book that Sam also co-authored is called Virus Mania. I just saw the other day that that's actually on Spotify as an audio book if you've got a membership, which makes it handy. Another good book on that is The Contagion Myth by Dr. Tom Cowan and Dr. Sally Fallon Morale. Yeah, and I'll put some other references on that topic as well. Contagion is another thing. So the idea is whether it is, I probably said this before, I'll say it again. Contagion is said to be the fluids of a sick person, either bacteria or viruses, given from one person to another. And Daniel Reuters is Australian, actually, naturopath, meticulously referenced book. All of these are. So you can actually go to all of the references and check it out for yourself if you're still in disbelief when you read these. He documents every single contagion study ever done, including the ones famously done during the Spanish flu, the Rosenthal experiments. And they never proved that the fluid of a sick person made someone else sick. Obviously, people get sick, and the point is knowing what it is that made you sick and changes the treatment. It definitely changes the treatment. This is another good book, What Really Makes You Ill. I put all of these in the show notes. And yeah, so the unconventional medicine, germ theory, allopathic medicine in that model, the idea is to stop what's going on. So what happens when we say that a virus or a bacteria is making someone sick? The idea is that they're causing death to the tissue and the cells, and then the body goes through its inflammatory process, and then through sneezing, coughing, sweating, mucus, eliminates that waste. And so usually the idea from the kind of allopathic model is if we stop those symptoms in their track, that it means that we've solved the problem. And there's actually a lot in the scientific literature that really disproves that. Antibiotics, people, I think, assume that they're specific, that you give an antibiotic to kill a specific bacteria, but it's not the case. They just kill bacteria. And like I said, it could be said that we're primarily bacteria along with water and proteins. And so killing bacteria is really, killing yourself to a certain extent. And it's associated, there was a study done on women who took antibiotics. The women who took them were more likely to die of all-cause mortality, so all causes, specifically cancer and cardiovascular disease they looked at, compared to women who didn't take antibiotics. Just to be clear, I think that there's a place for antibiotics if you are like on your deathbed, this kind of healing event is gotten out of control. You're in hospital and yeah, things are bad. I think taking antibiotics can be really useful in stopping that in its tracks. And then afterwards, you deal with whatever was causing the problem in the first place and help to heal the body from the antibiotic use after. But if you're just at home with a cold or flu and you're feeling pretty shit and uncomfortable and awful, you probably don't need it. That's my opinion anyway. Because you might want to take them so you can get back to work sooner, or you just don't like being sick, you want to stop it. But what I'm saying is that there is a ramification, in ending your life sooner. And we could spend hours on antibiotics and all of the problems that they cause, but I think that study just weighs it up. Like the likelihood of dying from something else goes up when you take antibiotics. So fevers are still in the public, I think, thought to be something that needs to be stopped or thought to be something that's dangerous. But even most hospitals don't think that stopping a fever is a good idea anymore for children. The worry was convulsions, but there actually isn't any evidence that giving something like Panadol will stop the occurrence of a convulsion anyway. And it also shows in the literature that it can increase your risk of cancer later on. So sweating is a detox pathway, and it makes perfect sense to me that if you are stopping that process of elimination, that the body's trying to get rid of something, that it would accumulate later on and turn into something more chronic like cancer. This is the point of acute illnesses, is to get rid of waste. If we don't get rid of waste, it gets deeper in the tissues and causes problems later on. So my opinion is that we need to work out how to facilitate this removal of waste safely and let it occur. And that is one of the best ways that you can prevent serious illness later on. Another thing to note is measles in the literature. Children who have measles, who are allowed to just let measles occur naturally, they have a lower instance of allergies and a lower instance of Parkinson's and rheumatoid arthritis later on. I'll put those links in the show notes too. So children often they're called exanthems, and this is things like chickenpox, foot and mouth, measles. Because of their rapid growth, their detoxification pathways are a little bit different, and rash is a really common occurrence. And it's a good thing. It's protective. These things are protective. Fevers are protective. Colds and flus are protective. Measles, things with rashes, they're protective. Yeah, so I think this idea that we have to fight, it's a real war mentality to fight and to stop and to kill, when we should be honoring and facilitating. It's, quite a different take. And, the thing is, like I think I mentioned before, that cell death that occurs, that, people say occurs through viruses and bacteria, it can occur from lots of other things. And it can be like nutritional deficiencies. It can be stress, belief. I'll get into that in a second. Toxins. It can be problems with your teeth. And like if you've got bad teeth or you've got root canals, all these kinds of things can cause tissue to break down and the body to feel like it needs to detox. So nocebo, I think is a good time to talk about that. Everyone knows about placebo. So you can take a sugar pill or a Panadol. And if you think that the sugar pill is the Panadol, you can still have the same result. Nocebo is basically the opposite. So nocebo is if you think something is going to cause you harm, you can actually develop the symptoms, even though that's not actually the case. So like there was a study done with 50 patients who had chronic pain, and they were randomly divided into different groups. One group was informed that the test would lead to an increase in pain, and the other wasn't. And the group that was told that they were going to get more pain got more pain. So if you think that you're going to get sick from someone sneezing next to you, you can actually manifest those diseases. You can actually manifest a cold and flu yourself just by thinking that you're going to catch it from Sally next to you. And this is kind of interesting. Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, they talk about emotions and fear and belief being a probable cause of disease. And Western medicine seems to ignore it. Like in the collective, it's not really regarded as true, but nocebo and placebo are so powerful that scientists need to account for these when they're conducting a study, because it is well known, but not in the collective. So I guess I'll get talking about what I do when I have a cold or flu. But I used to, before I kind of really understood the science around all of this, I used to take this thing called Armour Force. And even though I didn't never really took antibiotics apart from that one time I was in hospital, I would go hard with this thing called Armour Force, and it had lots of herbs in it, but it also had vitamin C and zinc and other things. And I won't touch a lab-made nutrient with the 10-foot pole anymore, because that goes through so many chemical processes. It doesn't resemble what nature provides. So, and like I said, if a cold and flu is the body getting rid of dead and dying tissue, whether you want to think it's a germ or whether you think it might be nutritional deficiencies or changes in temperature or emotions or a million other things, the body needs to get rid of that stuff. And adding other chemicals on it, even if it's through a lab-made nutrient, to me, it's not a good idea. So with what I do, one of the most important things I would say is reflection, which sounds silly, but I can think every time that I get sick, what was going on leading up to it. And often there's an emotional component. I know that the last time I got sick, I had overextended myself in every area, with work, at home, how I was looking after my body, how much I was socializing, and the body had enough. And I was forced into, this detox regeneration event that we call cold and flu. And you ask anyone when they've been sick, people don't generally say, oh yeah, it was fine, everything was fine beforehand. There's usually some stuff that was leading up to it, and that they could go, yeah, I could have improved on that. I could have not stressed out about that. Or, oh yeah, I did get a root canal however long ago. Whatever. You can usually trace it back to something. And I think that part of reflection is really important, because reflection is actually about self-care and acknowledging what your body needs and acknowledging, how to move forward. To me, it's top of the list. So on top of that is rest. As soon as I feel unwell, I put myself to couch or bed and I surrender to the fact that is happening, and I just let it roll, because the body is brilliant. The body knows what it's doing, and you need to let it do its thing. So resting and sleep is top of the pyramid after reflection, I guess. And getting naps in whenever you can, making sure that you're getting a full night's sleep as much as you can, because one of the best things for helping the body regenerate is melatonin, which happens when you're sleeping. So another thing that helps melatonin is having exposure to natural light, so opening a door or opening a window. The other thing is that we detoxify through the breath as well. And so sitting in a room with no circulating air, with your with all the things that are trying to get out of your body circulating, is not a good idea. So you need a window cracked for two reasons. So you get natural light to help your circadian rhythm, and so you get fresh air, so what you're detoxing has a chance to leave the room. If the weather is good, it depends on what time of year this occurs. I always do a sun bath if I can, so spending a good 15 minutes out and no clothes on, out in the sun. If it's too cold, try and wrap yourself up and go out even for a minute. In the time of COVID, anyone that was in hospital, that was hospitalized, their vitamin D was low. That's in the scientific literature. And vitamin D cannot be replaced by a supplement. It needs to come from natural light. So if the opportunity is there, get some sun on your skin is super important. Bathing is on top of sunbaths, bathing in water is a really excellent therapy, and I do it all the time when I'm sick. You get the bath as hot as you can. You drink some tea. I do yarrow, elderflower, and peppermint. I'll have some of that actually on the store at the end of the week or the beginning of next week. It's a really old therapy that's been used for a long time, an old tea preparation, and those herbs combined help sweating, so help that detoxification pathway. They help removal of mucus. They help calm the nervous system. It's an excellent remedy. But even if you don't have tea, chamomile is good, peppermint is good. They help sweating and they help calm the nervous system. And so bath as hot as you can, pop in for as long as you can, have a quick rinse, and get in the shower. Put as many clothes on as you can. Get into bed for an hour. This is to help sweating. You want the sweating to occur. You want the fever to break, and that natural sweating pathway to happen. If you do have a big sweat, go and have a shower, because there's toxins in that sweat that your body is trying to get rid of. And so I do a bath every day when I'm unwell. Bath every day with one of those teas, chamomile, peppermint, and try and really sweat it out. Magnesium in the bath via Epsom salts or clay, like bentonite clay. They really help as well to draw out extra toxins in the body. In terms of diet, there's that starve a cold, feed a fever, or is the other way around? Feed a cold, starve a fever. Anyway, I actually think that diet needs to be followed or precipitated with a bit of intuition. So, if it's summer, you might just eat a whole lot of fruit. But the thermal nature of what you're having should coincide with the season. So, if it's hot, fruit's a good idea. If it's cold, it might be more root vegetables. People often say fasting, and I don't think you need to fast in terms of not eat at all, but you definitely need to simplify what you're having so your body has a chance to, because digestion takes up a whole lot of energy, so you leave the energy to clearing what the body's trying to get rid of. but yeah, just a reduction. So broths like miso or bone broth, root vegetables, if it's in winter, fermented foods are really good. Anything that's easier on the digestive system. Sometimes broth won't cut it for me. I think the last time I was sick, I had toast, sourdough toast, so it's fermented. But I didn't eat much and had, some avocado on toast or an egg on toast, and that was it. Sometimes you might feel more like broths and porridges and congees and things like that. I just, yeah, as long as it's not a big heavy meal, things that are gentle, and just, yeah, trust what you feel like, at the time, and definitely stay away from things like fried food and processed food. Should be fresh and it should be homemade. Sometimes that's difficult if you don't have anyone to help you, but yeah, just follow your intuition, like I said on that one a little bit. And in terms of drinks, filtered water, fresh juices if you can, and lots of herbal teas. Again, I think yep is really the best one. The other thing that I do is castor oil packs. I've got a simple way to do castor oil packs on my website, so I'll put that in the show notes. I do it over the liver to help detoxification, and do it over the lungs if I'm really lungy. And I think the addition of, if you've got like coughing and wheezing and stuff like that, the addition of frankincense, kateri, I think is how you say it, that particular oil is really good. A lot of the tree resins are quite good at helping detoxify and regenerate tissue, and specifically to the lungs. So yeah, that combination always works really well. So just to recap: reflection, rest, castor oil packs, some kind of, restricted fasting, clean food, open windows, sun baths, regular baths. Yeah. And in terms of trying to prevent cold or flu, I think prophylactics. So fire cider is really good. So apple cider vinegar with things like cayenne, and what else do they put? Garlic, and rosemary and stuff. That can be quite protective. So I guess it protects that tissue breakdown that I was talking about. Elderberry. So elderflower was what was in the yep. And elderberries, I think, can also be used when you have a cold or flu, but it's actually a little bit more protective. It's got natural occurrence of vitamin C in there. And medicinal mushrooms are really good. Things like reishi, shiitake, turkey tail. Zinc is really protective to the tissues. I like oyster max. Like I said, I don't go near lab-made nutrients anymore. Oyster max is just oysters that have been dried into a powder. Yeah, I think that covers it all. So, think about cold and flu as an opportunity to clear your body out. It's protective. It protects you against serious disease later on. And, I think it's time that we move past this war-like mentality that we have on cold and flu, and we honor it and respect it and facilitate it. I hope you enjoyed today. And yeah, thanks so much for listening. Until next time.